You know, like the man I shared in the lift today. It's down to an individual's right of choice, of freedom.
Excuse me, talking about right of choice and she brought up Britain. I just want to ask about the whole debate in Britain about, accommodation of Muslims, especially, those who choose to wear the niqab and those who choose to dress in a conservative manner. Coming from this Middle East and go back to the West, how do you feel that it's that there is Islamophobia when they disagree with accommodating these new immigrants, or do you think that's just a form of being careful?
You see, you're saying accommodating these new immigrants. The majority of women I know in Britain who choose to wear the niqab are white female converts. You're assuming that they're immigrants, which, shows where you're coming from with your question. The whole business of the niqab made headlines in Britain last year when the Foreign Secretary, Jack Straw, chose to make it an issue. When a woman walked into his surgery and wanted to raise an issue in the area in which she lived, where Jack Straw was the democratically elected representative. So she was taking part in the full democratic process by raising an issue with her Member of Parliament. He criticised the whole business of her wearing the niqab and turned it into a huge issue. Suddenly, he went right up in the popularity polls, in the opinion polls, and other politicians began to realise if you take a stick and beat the Muslims, you go up in the popularity polls. This is the politics of your Qaeda. This was the politics of the Third Reich. This is the politics that has seen all sorts of crazy legislation coming through from this right-wing government in Holland. This is cheap, nasty politics using and misusing race. After Jack Straw, we had Gordon Brown, the new Prime Minister now, Gordon Brown coming out, and Dr. John Reid, two Scotsmen, coming from a country where men wear pleated skirts, criticising how women dress. We then had an archbishop come out and criticise and question the niqab. This is a man who wears a pointy hat and a purple dress. Then we're told that the whole business of the niqab, you can't see somebody's face, so it's very difficult to tell if they're being genuine or not. This came from Jack Straw, a man who sat opposite British Prime Minister Tony Blair as he lied and lied and lied and took Britain into an illegal war in Iraq. You presumably are working for a radio station. I can't see your viewers, your listeners. I can't see your listeners and they can't see me, but we are communicating. And I'm sure that that they'll fully understand what I'm trying to say, but they can't see my face. We use the telephone, we use text messaging, we use email, we use many different forms of communication without actually seeing someone's face. This whole issue of the niqab is very distracting, and it takes people's time and energies away from the real issues. As I say, I was staggered when I learned that women are going to be, or could be, stopped from voting because of their dress. Especially when women have gone through so much pain to get the vote in the first place.
Question. Some people have tried to justify the war in Afghanistan based on the idea of liberating women from oppression under the Taliban. I was wondering if you could talk about that. What do you think?
I have been to Afghanistan many times since I was released by the Taliban. Sadly, I can tell you there are no career women emerging from the rubble in Kabul. The country is in a chaotic state. Hamid Karzai is laughingly referred to as the mayor of Kabul because he cannot leave Kabul. It's not safe for him to travel around. He hires American bodyguards to look after him, which is a sad indictment on his own security forces. I, as a journalist, have travelled into some of the most hotly disputed areas of Afghanistan, and I have spoken to women who have said to me, will the West please drop this obsession with the burqa? Don't try and get me a job, try and get my husband a job first. Turn him into a breadwinner so he can come and put money on the table to buy my children food. They, in some areas, they are beginning to crave the security that they had under the Taliban. Afghanistan is an unmitigated disaster. And several years ago, I visited the Parliament building in Montreal and spoke to a couple of politicians. It was an off-the-record briefing. And they did ask me, should we be sending troops into Afghanistan? And I said, keep Canada well out of this one. The Canadian people have a wonderful reputation in Afghanistan for humanitarian aid, for help, for charitable work, a very positive image. And the last thing that you want is for Canadian uniforms to be seen as a threat, to be seen as an occupier in this country.
Well, Canadian troops are involved and are fighting and dying in Afghanistan, and they are involved in a combat role in Kandahar, and it is a matter of some controversy here. There are some politicians who want us to pull out, others want us to set a limit on the how long we would be staying there. I take it that you're aware of this and that you think it's wrong for Canada to be involved in a combat role in Afghanistan.
Not just Canada, Britain as well. And the trouble is when you give a timeline and say, well, we'll pull the Canadian troops out on May the 28th, 2008. All that is going to happen, the people who are fighting them will say, oh fine, we'll sit back then until May the 28th, and once they've gone, we'll start again. You know.